This is our wrap-up of what happened at CPAC over the weekend. CPAC, of course, is that, in fact, it started, I guess, midweek last week. CPAC, of course, is that conservative gathering that stands for, I think, Crazy People Are Coming Now. Maybe, I guess they dropped the N. But Rush Limbaugh, in fact, was scheduled for a 30-minute speech. Of course, when Il Duce gets up in front of the crowd, there's no stopping him. And what's really astonishing, not so much that he spoke for 80 minutes without having a heart attack, because I think when you're on those horse tranquilizers that he takes, anything is possible. What's really astonishing is that CNN carried his speech for almost 60 minutes uninterrupted by commercials. Now, for a long time, we've been talking about Obama making Rush Limbaugh the spokesperson for the Republican Party. He obviously didn't need to do much. It's clear now that Rush Limbaugh is the intellectual, moral, and I guess philosophical compass. I mean, he's everything. He's not just the compass. He's their linchpin. He's their maypole, as it were. There's no other leader in the Republican Party. And this is a wonderful, wonderful phenomenon to have taken place, because I think that after this CPAC thing, we really won't have to talk about the conservatives too much, because this is the death knell of their relevance as a political force in this country. Let's just take a look at Limbaugh again speaking to his minions. How bizarre is it to see this guy in a Jim Jones attire? I think this, like, literally, I think the outfit is actually a specifically Jim Jones wear. I'm not sure, and he's up there. You couldn't have developed this if you were doing some type of Terry Southern movie yourself. Let's watch the rest of this.
Doesn't matter to me what his race is. It doesn't matter. He's liberal is what matters to me. And his articulated plans scare me. Now, I understand, okay, we can't say we want the president to fail. Mr. Limbaugh, that's like saying, this is the voice of the new castrati, by the way, guys that have lost their guts. You can't say, Mr. Limbaugh, that you want the president to fail, because that's like saying you want the country to fail. No, it's the opposite. I want the country to survive. I want the country to succeed.
You know, there's two things that strike me about that. First off, it's very funny to hear a guy talk about the new castrati, someone who probably hasn't seen his own member in years. Except for in mirrors or after he's ingested handfuls of that Viagra that he was taking down to the Dominican Republic. Yeah, about that. Why would you take handfuls of Viagra to the Dominican? Anyways, let's play this, take a clip back, because towards the end there is a distinct, almost historical resonance to not just what he's saying, but the way he's saying it and the way the crowd is reacting. Check this out. It's astonishing. It sounds very much like Mussolini, but the German Mussolini. That's, incidentally, if you are going to be a fascist dictator, it's always good to know at least two languages, or at least one other language besides your own. Now, the other sort of big hit at CPAC, in addition to the normal crazies, was this 13-year-old boy named Jonathan Crone, who I guess it makes sense that, you know, if it's not a guy who is hopped up on hillbilly heroin or a guy who's an unlicensed plumber being your intellectual leaders, the next best thing is a 13-year-old. He's probably more intelligent than the lot of them, but again, he's not terribly sophisticated. Here he is, clearly having graduated from the Limbaugh School of Rhetoric, where he puts on a funny voice to talk about the people who are mocking him.
There were too many people who threw the term conservative around who didn't understand what they were talking about. They didn't understand what conservatism was. They didn't understand conservatism as a base of principle, but they understood it as a base of policy. Many people have come up to me and said, so you're a Republican, you know, you get up there and you do this Republican stuff and you're talking about politics, and I'd always have to tell them that no.
Fascinating. Now, what's really interesting, actually, is that this guy, Jonathan Crone, seems to have really hit upon what the problem with conservatism is, although he, in fact, praises it. And that is that conservatism is simply about principle, has nothing to do with policy. I mean, think about the implications of this. Play this and think about the implications of a governmental philosophy or worldview that has nothing to do with policy.
Many people in other ideologies think that it is the key to have ideological power and fervor. In the conservative viewpoint, we believe that it is principle-based. It is the people first, the people's rights, based upon principled views. And I believe that this is the key to the conservative viewpoint and its effectiveness in America.
He had started his speech by saying conservatism is about principle and not about policy. And the implications of this, of course, are that they are basically speaking Latin now. It's a dead language. It's good for the classroom. It's good if you're 13 years old and you're sitting around maybe trying pot for the first time and want to impress your friends, or maybe some of the girls in class who are feeling a little bit alienated. But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, there is no point to any type of ideology or philosophy or set of principles about how government should be organized, about how society should be organized, if it has nothing to do with policy. And the interesting thing about Jonathan Crone is I think he's going to have a great future in the Republican Party. And why is that? Because there are no people his age or even slightly older who are going to be interested in being a Republican when it comes time for them to vote or actually put their principles into practice.